Hello everyone and welcome to Sunburned. Albino ranks every boss in Final Fantasy XVI from worst to best. I usually do easiest to hardest, but with this game there isn't much difficulty variation between fights in the first playthrough, and it's more about the spectacle of the really climactic battles, like against Eikons in the final boss. This game has 32 bounty targets, but none of them have their HP bar in the top right corner, so to me they don't qualify as bosses, but I do plan to rank those in a different video, which still leaves us with dozens of main battles to judge based on their quality. Obvious spoilers of all kinds, let's get started out here. Number 29, Tiamat. The worst boss in Final Fantasy XVI is Tiamat, though not an undeserving one. This dude wants Jill's head. I mean, don't we all? But Clive sure isn't going to let him get it before he does. As a bearer himself, our sergeant is only trying to save his own hide by removing the obstacle that is us out of the way of completing the mission, but Jill and Clive later being nude on the beach for no reason hangs in the balance, so this is a very fateful and important encounter, and I will not abide you messing up my chance to see full bush because it's the Middle Ages, so you know the landscaping business isn't exactly booming. Number 28, Gigas. The first boss of the game, you don't expect Gigas to do anything other than what he does, so it's fine. He introduces the stagger system, he swings his club slow enough that a toddler could dodge it, and sometimes he twirls around like a ballerina and you can dodge through every rotation. Precision dodging does have a good amount of invincibility frames, which are extended if you do the attack afterwards, so you can get a lot of mileage attacking through other people's attacks, even AoEs. Someone needs to get this dude a bigger loincloth, though. This is not where I'm trying to see full bush. Number 27, Midnight Raven. I don't like when people are slippery. You're supposed to just stand there and let me use all my cooldown abilities right in a row until you get staggered, so you can just stand there even more and take extra damage. Midnight Raven is a hop, skipper, and a jumper, and will occasionally throw out a move called Assassinate, which I think is a little weird considering I'm fighting him straight up. If you snuck up behind me and caught me unawares, I get it, but I'm facing you. You can't assassinate a guy you're actively in combat with. Imagine someone walks up to you and goes, "Prepare for my sneak attack." You'd be like, "I see you, it already failed." Number 26, Chirada. Benedicta sends out her little birdlet to peck my eyes out, but it doesn't work too well, foreshadowing to when it doesn't work out for her either. Hope you like this encounter though, because in a couple hours there will be a whole field of them to farm for XP and ability points, and I do suggest you take the opportunity. Number 25, Fafnir / Flame Lizard. Some of these bosses have reskins down the line, so I'm just grouping them together as one, because it generally doesn't make them any more or less cool. Whether you're fighting a Fafnir or a Flaming Fafnir, you're still going to be dodging the same rolling attacks and waiting a decent amount of time for it to complete its spin cycle. As far as giant lizards go, these ones are just okay. Number 24, Iron / Aurum Giant. Love the skirt, very fashionable. This Iron Giant seems less interested in bonding with little boys and more interested in culling men. For the record, I don't really think any bosses are bad in this game, except Tiamat, just because he sucks. So this worst to best ranking is more like a whatever to amazing ranking, but we're still in whatever territory because I don't feel strongly about this. Number 23, Undertaker. Thought this dude retired in 2020. Guilty as charged. The only reason this is ahead of the Giants is because of the name. Where's Kurt Angle, bro? I'm trying to get tag teamed out here. I feel like the devs know what they did. They made Undertaker a brawler who likes to charge at you. I can't believe this arena doesn't have ropes around it. I don't think IRL Undertaker was capable of blasting lasers from the ground, or else he'd probably have a few more belts. Number 22, Liquid Flame. He's just kind of on fire. That's most of what he's got going for him. Fortunately, we have the worst dominant on our side to help stop him from flooding the arena with lava by putting up ice. You know, that thing Fire's notoriously weak against. I'm happy Jill got to stop the Pope from slitting kids' throats, but she really does not perform up to expectations throughout this entire game. The best thing she ever did was give us her power so we could use it properly. Look, I like Jill, but there's a reason we didn't bring her on the final mission, and it wasn't because of her full bush. Number 21, Necrophobe. At least he's not a homophobe. What's he scared of, necrophiliacs? We don't bite. I eventually take the Tornado ult out of my rotation because it's hard to fight enemies when you can't fucking see them, but the will damage is nothing to scoff at. I just think you can replace it with Diamond Dust later for some more immediate stagger results. I'll talk more about the build I went with when we get to an endgame boss in this list and I can show it off visually. Number 20, Phoenix vs. Ifrit. Our first Eikon on Eikon action. I think the one where you're Joshua as the Phoenix shooting a bajillion fireballs at Ifrit is a neat thing to watch during an announcement presentation, but when you're actually playing it, I can just feel my PS5 controller's warranty screaming at me as I mash the square button no less than 1,000 times over the course of it. Narratively, it's pretty good shock value to sit there and watch yourself get torn apart by your brother when you're like 8 years old. By the way, did anyone else not pick up on what the story was trying to go for there? I thought they were purposely showing me that Ifrit was Clive and that Clive had just lost control and was freaking out in the back of his mind watching himself do this. But apparently it was supposed to be a mystery with this whole alter ego manifestation. I just thought the cutscene was plainly showing him doing that, so I felt like the game spent the next 6 hours trying to gaslight me, but whatever. Number 19, myself. Same conversation carried over into this fight. We do the whole, oh my god, it was me, I killed Joshua routine, and I'm like, good job, Clive. I've been standing here at the psychological finish line waiting for your broken ass to cross it for what feels like decades, so congrats. I like the first phase of this fight. I enjoy swiping at large enemy ankles. It reminds me of Dark Souls and Kingdom Hearts at the same time, and it's comforting. I don't like when we have to turn into Ifrit, though, because he's so lame. He's smaller than most of the other icons, so I always feel like a midget barnacle clinging to somebody's ass, even if we're the same size. I'm against literally myself here, and I still feel tiny. Ifrit also has trash moves, so it's just not fun to be him, but I'm still fine with the context of this battle, and I'm satisfied with the results. Number 18, Dragoons. They'd prefer to be called Knight of the Blinding Dawn and Knight of the Dying Sun, respectively, but nah, they're Dragoons. They fall on you from out of the sky, but they make sure to shine a laser down there first so you know where they're aiming. I knew they were knights, but I didn't expect such chivalry. The first Dragoon is the first boss you fight that actually does combos, kind of, so you have to get acclimated to dodging, or parrying if you're a masochist. Dodging is safer, because if you mistime it, you'll still probably avoid an attack, but parrying is a hard commit and requires a full bush. Number 17, Shiva's Dominant. Speaking of full bush, we have the fight where you're somehow not supposed to recognize Jill until after you've done 800 sword swings at her face. On Final Fantasy mode in New Game Plus, it's even less justifiable because the fight takes 10 minutes of dealing no damage just to finish it. My man Clive needs to open his eyeballs. I'm working on that playthrough right now for a different video, trying to unlock and upgrade all the abilities so I can rank those too, but it's slow going when every enemy thinks it's a Monster Hunter boss and decides to sponge all my attacks. I understand not knowing it's Jill when she's primed, because like her whole being changes. Hell, Sid turns into Dumbledore whenever Rama needs a lightning bolt, but not many girls are rocking gray hair at age 20 unless they have progeria. Number 16, Sleipnir. Is this like Gleipnir, but drowsy? I expected a lot more from this dude. He's Barnabas's right-hand man. He walks with a swagger that professes a better fighter than he actually turns out to be, and for combat he dresses like a regular royalist with no fashionable flair. I'd have bet money that when we beat him as a boss, he'd just laugh and walk away, but he just coughs blood and dies, and I'm like, what's the catch? But there is no catch. Only that later on you get to fight 100 clones of him that are infinitely weaker, but he's still dead as a construct. I do like that he gets to summon Gungnir spears from a pocket dimension like it's Danganronpa. Good thing Mukuro Ikusaba wasn't here. Number 15, Republican War Panther. I just like big cats, okay? Number 14, Garuda. You want a good time, walk behind her when the match starts. The gooch is the most vulnerable part of the body, and I would see it exploited. Now that you have Garuda skills, you can do a bit more will damage with your extra abilities, and face plant her whenever she loses half her stagger bar with the circle button. There isn't a lot of real utility to doing that yet. It works best if you've got DOT effects happening beforehand, because they'll continue to proc while you wrestle her to the ground like a sexy gator, and it gives your other skills time to cool down too. Eventually, and unfortunately, this fight will end, and you'll move to Phase 2 as Ifrit, where you must constantly chase her down as she camps you out like a Street Fighter character. It's drawn out and lame, but at least you get to finish off her last 25% HP in extended cutscene fashion, which takes some of the work out of it. Number 13, Akashic/White Dragon. These are cool looking dragons, but there's not much else to say about them. You're better off not locking on while they're standing upright, or some of your attacks might whiff under their noses, and you'll look real dumb in the process. Number 12, Imperial Cannoneer. This is in a weird spot because I hate fighting this guy. The mortar guys up close just feel unpredictable, like I definitely don't have their patterns down. You wouldn't think a fatty lugging something this heavy and unwieldy would be a threat, but he's kinda agile too. He rides that cannon like it's a broomstick sometimes. Absolute unit and master of his craft. Too bad he turns Akashic in his second phase. He had a real cannoneer career ahead of him. Number 11, Hugo Kupka. The first time you fight Kupka before he turns into Titan is a decently paced person-to-person encounter. He got Benedicta's head sent to him in a box, so he really flew off the deep end. He thinks we did it, and we never correct him, which kind of doesn't sit right with me. Like, yeah, we killed her, but I must have missed the part where Clive tore off her head and faxed it to Kupka. This is a good time to talk about the Will o' the Wisps ability, because it's maybe the best in the game. That's the orbiting fireballs around my character that unlock after you get the Spartan Rage limit break thing, and if you upgrade them, they can completely nullify 4 hits of damage, as well as doing up-close small damage over time. Being able to cancel 4 hits of damage on an ability that lasts this long with this short of cooldown is insanely good. I try to have this up anytime I possibly can, and it's part of the reason I only died once in my entire playthrough on action difficulty. Number 10, Bahamut. We're here in the top 10 best bosses of Final Fantasy XVI, and number 10 is Bahamut because that shit kinda drags. This man has 2 different health bars, one of which replenishes, and everything we throw at this guy, he spends like 12 minutes in the cutscenes just putting up a nigh impenetrable shield. Only the final boss is more stubborn about giving up the ghost and shuffling off this mortal coil. Bahamut just refuses to be injured for the longest time, until we finally pierce him with the power of brotherly love. If only he had Terrence up there to make out with and give himself a power boost, things might have gone differently. At least his iconic abilities are good though. Giga Flare does massive damage to staggered enemies, and I like the multi-wisp one for the DOT. Number 9, Behemoth. I've never seen a slower moving meteor in my life. If this is what wiped out the dinosaurs, it's their fault for not advancing thousands of years up the civilization tech tree and launching themselves into space before it landed. Watch out for the Behemoth's big tornado move, because it apparently just shreds all your health if you step in it. I don't know how I lived to 1 HP after accidentally storm chasing, but maybe that's just what the move does. I got caught in it, nearly died, burned the high potion, stepped in it again, and almost died even harder. The boss itself isn't hard, though. You just have to notice when there's a huge funnel cloud taking up half the screen, which I apparently didn't. Number 8, Control Node. Oh shit, Wheatley's gone rogue. This is just a different sort of boss, and I like it. Nothing else in the game really does what it does, and it feels unique, which makes it fun to fight. The end. Number 7, Curl. Remember when I said I like big cats? This is an even better cat, because it does lightning stuff and has Ivysaur whip attacks. Number 6, Barnabas. I never really bought Barnabas as an all-powerful figure. He doesn't look that menacing, but that sword definitely wrecked our shit more than once in cutscenes. Pretty sure that's what Moses used to part the Red Sea. This first playable encounter with him is actually the hardest boss in the entire game because it's scripted impossible. He gives himself a purple health bar where it tells you to press the attack, but all my best skills can only do like half damage before it transitions into a cutscene and he unleashes Zanetsuken on my shoulder blades. Canonically, I don't really get how we're ever able to beat this dude. Every time we come up against him, we're humbled by his strength until the game just decides that we can go toe-to-toe now. His other fights and phases are pretty fun. I really enjoy the moves where he telegraphs like 90 slashes all over the battlefield and you have to stand in the right spot to avoid them, or when he does his screen-wide cut that you have to quickly get behind him on. Number 5, Morbol / Akashic Morbol. Now this is a good introductory boss. It's big, menacing, weird, simple, and really sets the stage for the rest of the game in terms of overcoming daunting challenges. Not for you, the player, but if I was a 15-year-old sortie with 2 regular-ass soldiers next to me, I would not think that I stood a chance against a creature this massive. But Clive shows no fear and steps up to the plate to knock this bitch out of the park. Again, mechanically it's simple, his attacks are slow and infrequent, but this was the main boss in the demo where I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna like this game. Number 4, Ultima / Ultima Prime / Ultima Risen / Ultima Malleus. Okay, you don't have to be Ansem and have 9 different boss phases, my guy. Ultima is a cool villain. I really enjoy the struggle between an absent creator and the self-cultivated will of his creations. The idea of a god that ignored his subjects and failed to instill any faith in them towards him, overcome by the replacement phenomenon of human will that they kept to sort of enlighten and support themselves, is basically like an absentee father who comes back after you're all grown up and starts demanding that you submit to him as a parent, and you get to be like, fuck you, Dad, you weren't there for me, my life is my own and I don't need you anymore. It's an interesting angle to tell a religious story. So let me talk about my build real quick. The footage might not bear this out, but this is my theoretical plan for boss fights. I use Garuda, Shiva, and Bahamut as my 3 bases for icons. My Garuda base actually has 2 mastered fire abilities instead. The Will of the Wykes, that defensive fire spell that blocks damage, and the Charging Stampede one that sticks mobs to you like glue and is too fun for me to replace, even though it can be a liability in bosses because you're stuck in it. I use Garuda because of its pull ability to stagger bosses at half will, and since I run a mostly DOT build, if a few of my effects are active during that, the boss takes extra will damage during the animation, and you're in an easier spot to break it all the way afterwards. My Shiva base has Rhyme, which is a DOT crystal you shoot out that sucks little enemies in and does constant damage to anyone nearby, and Diamond Dust, which does unparalleled will damage quickly without obscuring the whole field like the tornado. You don't need Shiva, the Eikon, to run with these abilities, but I haven't mastered them. Plus it so happens that one backdash from Shiva puts you in the perfect range to shoot the Rhyme crystal right over a staggered boss's head. Lastly is Bahamut, in which I use the Wisp spell that follows enemies and does DOT, and then Giga Flare as my trump card for when the enemy is staggered and I have other effects going on. So we stagger the enemy, he falls over, I backdash as Shiva and throw the Rhyme Crystal on him, then I use the Bahamut Wisp spell, then I do a lunge forward, then I use Will o' the Wykes if it's not already active, then I do a point-blank Giga Flare so the Wykes damage is still proccing while it goes off. If all this goes to plan, the enemy has a giant laser beam in their face while taking damage over time from 3 different other moves, and at endgame, on your first playthrough, you'll be looking at upwards of 70,000 damage during the window. Best part is, the laser slows down time, but it doesn't slow your DOT hits, so the enemy's stagger bar isn't refilling while they're getting reamed in every possible manner, so after the laser is over, you still have time to unleash a few combos and use whatever moves aren't on cooldown. If you start New Game Plus on Final Fantasy mode and continue to level up and obtain better gear, you can expect these numbers to increase drastically, although it'll be the same percentage of health taken away since the enemies in FF mode are spongier than Bikini Bottom. Anyway, the best but also cheesiest phase of Ultima is when he becomes Ultimalius and starts sending individual cutscene attacks at you that represent each different icon, and you counter by using the same icon back at him. And somehow he thinks this strategy will work all of the 6 fucking times he uses it. He'll be like, Gales, Unrelenting, and then Clive is like, Garuda, and counters him. Then he'll be like, Levin, Untamed, and Clive will be like, Rama, and counters him. And then Ultima will be like, Earth, Unyielding. Like, dude, give up. It's not working. The schizophrenic voices of my friends are cheering me on in my head. I've spent the last 40 hours breaking wheel gauges. You're never gonna break mine. Number 3, Titan. What a banger of a boss. This is true spectacle right here. This is like God of War 3 levels of hype, where you're doing something and you're just like, God, that's so fucking cool. And all set to this strangely modern punk rock grungy soundtrack, but it works. It feels like something out of Sonic Frontiers. This first phase is whatever, not bad, but it's when we get to Titan Lost that things really heat up, dodging giant rocky tendrils, throwing them back at an absolutely colossal monster. This part is everything right with this game. If the other 2 phases of this fight were as epic, it would be number 1, no question. But while the first phase is good, and the second phase is the best part of the whole game, the third phase just drags it out. Like, now we're both falling endlessly. Why did we need to do this? You're gonna end this tremendous encounter with us just spending 7 minutes ragdolling down a bottomless crevice? Meh. Number 2, Typhon. So if this is one of the other deities who supposedly became a Mother Crystal, why is this guy the only one who's, like, around? We destroyed 4 or 5 of them, and besides Ultimas, none of the other ones had a dude just living in there. Anyway, Typhon has half a mind and half a body to destroy us, so we have to unleash our Ultra Instinct Super Saiyan God Dragon Ball super moves on him. This fight is literally Dragon Ball Z. It's got Goku, Vegeta, and Frieza shit going on. It's so tropey, it's ridiculous, but I still loved it. Like this cutscene part here, we create a fiery spirit bomb and hold it up to the sky. Typhon shoots a triple Frieza death beam at us, we jump over it. Typhon uses instant transmission to get behind us and backhand us into the ground like we just overcooked his dinner, then unleashes a ki blast volley at us, coughing up smoke that obscures our body. We are presumed dead, but when the smoke clears, we still got one arm up like we're still holding the spirit bomb, and I laugh my ass off at that part. Typhon notices and looks up behind him, and there it is. So we jump up and spike it like a volleyball at his recently blonde face, and then punch right through it and fuck him up. I grew up watching Dragon Ball Z, so I am definitely the target audience for this battle. Number 1, Benedicta. It's perfect. It's a perfect boss, and they know it. That's why they shoehorned it into the demo, because you fight this boss and you almost cry at the camaraderie on display between Clive and Torgal as they team up to bring this raging harpy down. It's so funny during the cutscenes when Torgal attacks her and she's so upset and annoyed by it. She's like, Fah! She gets a good revenge hit in, and you're, I guess, supposed to be like, oh no, Torgal is dead. Not that anyone believed that for a second. And then he returns triumphantly to initiate this tag team combo against Benedicta that is a work of damn art. The way he chomps on her neck and spins around and throws her has to be the coolest move in the entire game. Torgal is a badass, and he hasn't even awakened his powers yet. This is the only battle in the game that had me welling up tears of sheer appreciation and joy at what I was witnessing. They just blatantly knocked it out of the park here, and I think this is the moment when a lot of people truly fell in love with Final Fantasy XVI. It's not a perfect game, it has its ups and downs, but things like this are going to stick in our gamer memories for years to come. Well, that's going to do it for this boss ranking. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can like, share, and subscribe. Watch all my other videos with a full bush, and I'll see you guys next time.